Hello, it's David from David Savoury Electrical Services Limited, and welcome to New Toy Tuesdays, an occasional slot where I look at something whizzy that has come my way. It's been a while since I did one of these, so sorry to drop this on you as a bit of a surprise, especially as today happens to be Wednesday of all things. So what's going on here? Well, I do have a new toy to show off, and it's the Bosch PLL 360 laser, but let's preface this by going back to yesterday when it was actually Tuesday, and my attempts to fix my broken Imex LX22 laser, which was ultimately unsuccessful and makes for a rather boring 45 minutes of video that I've edited down because it didn't go anywhere, and which precipitated in my need to go out and replace it today with something new because, well, that thing's packed up and I need to get some lines on the ceiling for some downlight jobs. An unusual videoette today because I'm going to take a closer look at my failing Imex LX22 laser level and see if I can have a bit of a crack at fixing it, hopefully, because it's I've had it a few years now and it's been a rather handy little workhorse. My original laser that I bought was from a DIY store, and it was a rather cheap and cheerful affair, this Bosch Quigo, which is fine, I suppose, for DIY use, but pretty hopeless for out on site. The trouble with this thing is it's very hard. It gives you a good sort of cross line on the wall, but any slight movement from true and you just lose the line completely. It turns it off. Also, under bright light conditions you just can't see it, and I was having terrible trouble trying to get lines down the ceiling to do downlights, that sort of stuff. It's very hard to get this thing to do a line down the room unless you physically place it very close to the ceiling. So out with that and in with this, which I bought from Alex a few years ago. This is the Imex LX22, a very good laser level. It gives you a cross line. You can have you can have an individual horizontal or vertical line. It is a red laser. Obviously green is the thing to go for these days. You can see it's quite bright. It also gives you a plumb spot up and down, so you can place this somewhere on the ground to get a dot on the ceiling without having to do your measurements up a ladder or that sort of stuff. Runs on AA batteries, and the problem I have with it at the moment is that it took a rather nasty tumble last winter, and since then the power button hasn't been working. Oh, it just worked. Actually it didn't. You can see that it is still, even in the off mode, there is still a very faint laser light there, and we still have the green LED here, so it just sits there draining the batteries, which means every time I want to actually power it off I have to remove a battery, which is a bit of a pain, but not the end of the world. However, on site today we were doing a downlight job. I needed to get a line down the ceiling, and if I press the button it's giving me a horizontal line. What it's not giving me is a vertical line anymore, so there's something gone horribly wrong in there. I'm hoping that if I can get into this, which I might not be able to do, and I'm also hoping that when I do get into this I'm going to find something like a PCB fracture that I can solder up and repair, or something like that, something that the impact damage or the impact of it, just there's a crack there from the impact, something that's just caused some obvious damage inside that is repairable, but it is make or break. So I'm going to take this apart, and if it doesn't survive the disassembly process, or if things will spring out everywhere, then so be it. I should be in the market for a new laser. I'm using these Varta batteries, which I think I got from Toolstation because they seem alright at the moment, but annoyingly there's evidence of battery leakage in here, which isn't from those. We got caught out on a job, it must be February last year, February 2018, where the batteries would run out on this. And the only shop in the village we were in was a co-op, so I went in there and the only batteries they had were this shit pack of like 12 for £1 or something, and you know that you're buying batteries like that, they're going to be rubbish. But within days the damn things had burst and just leaked in there. Now I expect them to not last very long at that sort of price, but I don't expect them to bloody burst and stain acid all over the inside of my friggin' £150 laser level. So I wrote an angry tweet to the co-op about that, saying, look, if you're selling these batteries, if you're going to bother actually putting them on the shelf in store, at least make sure that someone can put them into an appliance or into a device, and within days they're not going to burst and piss acid everywhere. And of course co-op just didn't give a toss because, well, they wouldn't. It looks like we've got 4 screws at the back here, so let's have a start with them, shall we? See if we can't break into this mother. Annoyingly, LX was only a month ago, and I actually went to the Imex stand and I said, look, I've got problems with my laser level because I dropped it and it's not switching off properly. It's not doing too much good. And they were trying to sell me a new one with a green line, but I just didn't really want to spend that kind of dosh on a new one at that time. And now perhaps I'm wondering if I ought to have done. But let's open this up here, and it's like disarming a bloody bomb. This is rather intricate, isn't it? Wow. Okay, so what have we got here? We've got a little ribbon cable which I should be able to just unplug there, and hopefully that'll help me to ease it out of the housing a little bit. And then we've got a battery connector that I can disconnect here. So there's obviously some kind of PCB or something in there which I may have to have a closer look at, because it may actually be that's damaged where the switch is rather than the main board in here. But let me get that closer to the camera. I'm going to get out my magnifying glass. Just give that a bit of a once over. See if I can't see any sign of damage or disruption to the board. It does look pretty good actually. It looks in pretty good nick, doesn't it? Annoyingly. Oh shit, I'm going to be spending 150 quid on a new friggin' laser, aren't I? I'll have to say there's not an awful lot to see there on the face of it. It's a good weighty piece, that is. There's a grey wire there that's been damaged. Oh, and there's a little contact switch there that was out of place. Now I don't know if that was out of place just because I've disassembled it, or whether that was already out of whack. But I wonder actually whether that grey wire has been chopped, because something has bitten right into that. I don't know if that's worked loose and has become damaged, or whether it's a manufacturing fault. That's obviously supposed to sit in there, which is supposed to keep it away from whatever it's been caught on. Let's do a little continuity test if we can, using this brand new TIS E217, which still has the cellophane over it. So new that I don't know how to use it yet. I must read the instructions and do a little new Toy Tuesday on this thing. Here we go, continuity. Sorry, just having a bit of a play there. Right, just check that grey wire still actually has any continuity. Seems to. Damn. I want to find something simple because my electronics knowledge is well, non-existent for the most part, so it would be nice, wouldn't it, just to spot a smoking gun, but I don't think I'm going to have such luck here today. As for that ribbon, or the switch up here, it's only really 2 traces on that. The LED that shines through is here on the board, so that really is just that switch. So you ought to be able to verify that push button actually works, if I've got enough fingers for it. Yeah. So the push button works okay. There's nothing to take apart in here and look at then after all. So everything is on this block here. I think I'm onto a loser, aren't I? Yeah, that's no change there, is there? Still no vertical line. It is actually, it did just turn off then. It is turning on. Well, there is a vertical line, it's just really, really faint. That is currently switching between horizontal, vertical, both, and if I hold it down, off. So that is actually behaving at the moment, except for the fact the vertical laser is bobby-nogs. So what's going on there then? The wires to the laser diode are so damn thin. Why is that? Because they're tiny, they're like a hair-like. I bet Steve on the STG electrical channel will know all about that. But unfortunately, I'm just a knob who doesn't know about these things. There are some connections here that look decidedly cack. Right, let's fire up the old soldering iron. We've got some pretty, I don't know, ropey looking connections here. Let's just tidy them up a bit with the soldering iron and see if that makes any difference whatsoever. I don't hold out much hope, to be honest. It's always worth having a crack at these things, and I do volunteer at a repair cafe every now and again where people bring in their items of equipment and we have a crack at opening them up and seeing if we can fix them, and we do get a lot of failures. It's very hard when people bring in things like CD players and that sort of stuff, because there's not a lot that we can service on them, especially in that environment where we're sort of sitting in a community centre with limited access to diagnostic and repair tools. But there are a lot of things that are straightforward to fix, and they're down to just bad connections or blown fuses or whatever, and it's great to be able to give these sort of things a new lease of life with a simple bit of repair where possible. Alexa, desk lamp to 70%.
Okay.
And these fine wires come down onto here, and I'm just going to make sure they're soldered on. Although the width of her hair, and I can barely freaking see them. See these thin wires? They're marked horizontal, vertical, and positive. Fuck me! I'm going to stop recording here. And we're back. Sorry, I had to stop recording there because that just took ages. These wires are just hair thin, and I tried to tidy up their joints and they just popped out, and getting them back in has just been very difficult. But they are back on. I think they're in the right places. Oops. Let's see if we still have exactly the same thing now. The vertical laser is too dim to the point where it's useless. It's all rather annoying because at the moment the switch is working okay, everything's working okay, it's just that the horizontal laser isn't. Okay, desperate times call for desperate measures. Oh, I've just gone and snapped one of those wires. There's one of those really thin wires, so that's fucked it anyway. There's just no sign of damage there at all. I was really hoping to find a cracked board there from one impact too many and go, ah yes, there we go. Oh, snapped all those thin wires now. There we go. Cock smoking all round. We fixed it. We found a crack in the PCB, but no. Why should life be like that? Tell you what, there is one thing I'm just going to quickly try. These thin wires are so nonsensy nor awful. I'm just going to get rid of them and replace them with something else. You can look at that. I bet you can't even see them, can you? They are as thin as a human hair, those things. What I'll do is I'll get some thicker thin wire. Oops. And I'll replace those wires, or I'll replace the positive and the horizontal one at least, just to see if it makes any difference. Just in case it was one of these wires was a bit pants, I mean, it's a long shot, isn't it? But last thing my skillage, such as it is, will allow, so what the hell. So how do these route through here? So again, this is a very thin wire. This is, what is this? 0.25 mil in a rather fetching yellow. Crikey, it's a bit of a threading job, this. This is probably why they were so thin, to get them through this friggin' annoying bit here. I imagine as well, it's the thinness of them is just to stop them from from affecting the gimbal as it sort of moves around, stop the wires from keeping it off cock or anything. So even this wire might be too thick, it might affect how the thing levels, in which case, if you can't get a level line out of it, it's all for cock anyway. So like I say, just for shits and giggles, I'll stick a new bit of wire in on a couple of the terminals here, and we'll just see if it makes the slightest iota of difference. Alright, the vertical again, it's lighting up, but there's no wall up to it. Oh, poo. But I think I've come to the end of the things that I can investigate with my rudimentary knowledge. I could go around and give a few of these terminals a bit of a blob with this soldering iron, just in case there is something a bit dry, a bit crappy on there, but well, I guess that's that. That wire I soldered onto the vertical laser, I've got the HBM plus, obviously I haven't connected the horizontal. I've now swapped over, so the PCB is now driving the horizontal laser, but it's connected to the vertical diode, and the output is still bad. So that suggests to me that it's the laser diode itself rather than any fault with the PCB. So it does look like it's the diode itself that's got an issue. It does indeed look like I've got to buy a new bloody laser level. Bollocks! So the LX22 sadly departs this world, shuffles off this mortal coil. I think functionally it's all there, it's just the vertical laser that's gone. It's very dim. I have been doing a bit of googling around, and it does appear that when a laser diode dies, it fails into this sort of low intensity, low power mode, or so I've read. But well, you can't believe everything you read from Google, can you? So maybe someone who knows a bit more about electronics can tell me more about the failure states of laser diodes. But I can't see how I could replace it anyway. It is kind of a precision instrument. I don't need things to be, super accurate, super level. But I don't think my monkeying around with it is ever going to do it any good, even if I had a replacement laser diode to put into it. So, sorry, fella. And I had a bit of a look around. I had gone onto Twitter yesterday, and I asked my peers what kind of equipment they would recommend to replace it with. And thankfully, I got a lot of replies from the likes of Karen Boom, for example, who recommended a Bosch green laser technology. A few people recommending the green laser over the red laser. You do pay more, and I was also told that they can chew up batteries. So there you go. This one that I've replaced it with, the Bosch PL360, is red. I also had a message from Mr. F, who recommended a £70 Magnuson rotary that he says has been kicked to drops and had all manner of crap spilled upon it, but it's still going strong after 18 months. It's red and it works, and he's a tightwad, as he said. So this was only like 80 odd quid from Screwfix. It's an interesting looking thing, this. I did actually consider this for a fair old while, because I kind of like the menacing look of it. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Maximilian from Disney's The Black Hole, a 1979 movie with one of the coolest robots you'll ever see. I mean, maybe it's just me, I don't know. Incidentally, that film also had perhaps two of the wankiest looking robots that you've ever seen. As if NASA would ever make anything this fucking doggy looking, but well, there you go. Still Maximilian, good batty robot. Even if he does remind me, and perhaps nobody else, of a Magnuson laser level. Bit weird, I know. Okay, fair enough. I'd also like to mention that Mr. F named a solar system to honour the passing of my Imex laser, so it's nice to know that it will forever live on in the heavens. You're a true gentleman, sir. The Electrician's Guide to Everything recommended the DeWalt. In fact, a few people said DeWalt, end of. There you go. The only thing apart from the price tag that puts me off DeWalt is I don't have any other DeWalt gear, and although it does come with a battery and a charger, and I like the idea of a rechargeable laser, I was even taking this apart bemoaning the fact that there aren't many rechargeable lasers out there. I don't really want to have to prat about with AA batteries. It's still extra kit to have to carry around, and yeah, the price tag just scares the hell out of me a little bit. So I got a bit cheap in the end and I went with Bosch, and it doesn't tick all the boxes, I must admit. One thing I liked about the LX22, apart from its nice bright beam and its horizontal and vertical shenanigans, was the fact it did a plumb spot as well. So you could put it down on the floor and it would project a plumb spot on the ceiling, which meant you could do your measurements at sort of ground level and then sort of move that around and project your spot up high or send a spot down low in order to mark something out, and that came in jolly handy. So the PLL 360 doesn't have the plumb spot feature, but the reason I went for this is it is a 360 degree laser, and that's kind of what I like the idea of. With this thing, when we've been doing a room, you've got a square room, you're first fixing it, you're getting all your socket boxes on the same level or whatever. You have to get that onto the either onto a tripod or mounted onto a prop, but obviously it's only going to shine across a couple of the walls potentially, and then you've got to sort of move it around and re-level it, and it all gets a bit well, it's just a bit of faff, not much faff. We can live with it, what the hell. But I like the idea of something that's going to send a line around 360 degrees, so once it's set up we don't have to prat about with it. Let's have a quick chat about what's nice and what's not so nice about this thing. And I've only bought it today, bought it from Screwfix, 150 odd quid, and then I spotted on Amazon you can get it for about 120, links in the description. So I've already had my pants pulled down on the price, but I kind of needed it today because we were doing downlights today. And I needed a laser. You can't get a decent, accurate downlight plan without a bit of laser action. Well, I can't anyway. I'm sure there are some old school boys and girls out there who go, well, we used to do it with tape measures and we didn't have any trouble. Fair enough. Okay, this does take batteries, and it comes with 4 AA batteries that are concealed in the back here. What brand does it supply you with? Oh, it's a bit of a no brand. Bosch are getting cheap on me. We'll see how long they last for then. Not a bad form factor. The one thing I like about it is the on-off switch also physically locks the thing. On my LX22 you have the lock and unlock function. You can hear it sort of knocking about in there. So if I put it away in the toolbox and neglected to switch the lock function on, it would just rattle away and knock itself about a bit. But this, when you actually switch the mechanical switch into the off position, will also physically, mechanically lock it to stop it from shaking itself to bits inside, which is nice. I like that. That's a good feature. Obviously it does do the 360, it does do horizontal and vertical, and you've got this mode switch here which switches between them. So if I put that down there and try and get a line, I don't know how well that's going to come out on camera, but there is a line there just above my radio. I can, and you've got a horizontal line there, as you can see, going across the face of my high-tech computer gear here, and I can press the mode button to toggle between a horizontal, a vertical, or both, as you would expect. And if I knock the laser from true, then you can see the lines disappear and I get a warning light to come on here, so I know when it's not perfectly level. And I can disable that feature with the lock button there, so if I wanted to actually get a diagonal line up the wall or something, then I can do that, which is nice because that's something that I can't do on the Bosch Quigo, which is one of the first laser levels I bought, and quickly found that it was just not going to do the biz, because you can see that just knocking it off true, bing, it turns the beam off, and there's no option to override that, which is annoying because, okay, fair enough, sometimes you want to, most of the time you're going to want a straight level line, but on occasions when you don't and you're actually trying to get something up some other kind of line, some diagonal line or whatever, and you know, I want that option to be there. I want that option to be able to override it, and that's what I've got here. And it is indeed projecting a line around the room. I don't think it's as bright as the LX22 potentially. I reckon that the Imex give me a brighter line. It's it's not too bad, but and this is quite a bright room and it's showing up quite well in here. But I think, you know, when you see the green lasers in action, you can really see the difference. I think for its money, it's probably, well, all right for the job. A couple of things to mention that it comes with. You can either buy it with what do they call it? I'm going to have to look at the manual here. You can either buy it with a tripod. Oh, it's all in foreign. Where's the English one? I can't read foreign. I can barely read English. It's funny that the English one has a glossy finish, and the one for that, the Eastern European countries or whatever, has this just rough finish. It's like, well, they can just have it on lower quality paper. Blah 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 blah. Universal holder. That's imaginative, isn't it? They have this accessory called the universal holder, and I must admit I'm a bit annoyed here because I thought it came with that, and I thought that looked like quite a nifty accessory, because you can use that for things like your pole mounting, but also it can be used as a tripod, a very small tripod, and when you're trying to get lines at a low level on the wall, because you're trying to mount an accessory at quite a low level, if you're in a place that's not compliant with Part M of the building regs, for example, then that would have come in handy. So the fact that that's not in the box is a little peeving, but that's my lack of homework for you, because I never checked fully to see what was in the box. I made the assumption that it was there, and you can either have that or you can have the tripod, but you can't have both. That's Bosch going at you. It's one or the other. I have to say, I went for the tripod because I thought, well, if it's a 360 laser, I'd rather, you know, sit it on top of a tripod, and that's a good sturdy looking tripod. I have got another tripod that came with the Imex. It's a bit more flimsy, but I use it for the camera most of the time. In fact, the camera's sitting on it right now, so this gives me something I can actually chuck on the van and can get beaten about a bit and hopefully, you know, take a bit of a kicking, whereas the Imex one I think is a bit flimsier. So it's got a good quality tripod for the money. And it also comes with one of these contraptions which allows you to stick it around a pole. So if you're putting it around a prop or something, you can attach it around there, and then you can attach your laser on there and move it about, and that's actually quite a handy bit of kit. I already have one of them because one came with the Quigo, so there you go, I've got another one now. Also comes with a soft case, which is good because I intend to keep it in my main toolbox. That's where the Imex lived, in my main Stanley box. That's where this one's going to live, because when you need it, you need it, and I don't want to be faffing around in the van, and it's a bit of kit I don't want to keep on the van in case some bastard breaks into it and steals it. So I'm not really interested in it. It doesn't come with any kind of blow molded case or anything, and if it did, I wouldn't have used it anyway. I don't want to be carrying lots of cases in. I want to keep that in my toolbox, and I expect it to be robust enough to, you know, survive in there. It'll be in its soft case, so it's not going to get screwdrivers sort of scratching into it or anything like that. The dust is going to get kept out of it, but it's not too bad. The quirk I have with it is the shape of the casing, as we found today, because there's nothing square about that at all, is there? And the vertical line doesn't extend across the ceiling too far. So today I was having to use it with the lock function because I was working on a downlight arrangement, and I had to sort of lean it back, but it's wobbly as fuck because it's got no flat side to it, and that I think is a bit stupid. You can. And I should have seen this really from looking at the pictures, because the vertical line is projected out of the front window here, whereas if you look at many other lasers like the Imex, you've got this window that extends partially across the top, so you get a line that goes much further back. So this has a narrower line, which means you may have to knock it off true in order to get it on the ceiling, and as you start doing that, obviously you're losing your level. But also it's very difficult to stop that from rocking or moving off centre or whatever. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this bit off, take the base off my Imex, because that's actually a pretty good base, and I'm going to affix it to here and do which is what Bosch should have done in the first place, because that gives me a stable base that I can potentially use either way up. It's fucking stupid, isn't it? To be honest,
let's just take the lock off there. Does that actually? No, that just goes off completely. To be honest, I'm not. In fact, that's a bit wobbly on there as well. I'm not terribly convinced about this, and I'm kind of wishing I hadn't rushed out and bought it and done a bit more homework and listened to what cleverer people than I were actually saying on Twitter about what to buy, because I think that there are a few flaws with this that a traditional form factor laser doesn't have. I think you get a better vertical line out of one of these. I think you can, the flatter sides make it more of a practical prospect. And this, although it does give me this nice 360 line, might be a bit of a pain. It's not the end of the world, because we do carry another laser on the van. Nigel's Stanley laser, which is this sort of form factor, is available to us. It's pretty beaten up. It's lost its battery cover, but we do have that. Although it's not in the main toolbox, we do have that at our disposal, and you never know, it might be that that ends up in the main toolbox instead of this. But you know, it's 150 quid that I'd rather be putting to some decent use. So yes, there are a few flaws with this that perhaps I ought to have researched further. But there you go. What can you say about a laser level, really? Probably nothing of interest, in which case I suggest you all bugger off and do something else with your time instead of listening to me babble on in this manner. Anyway, thanks for watching.